And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
John, the latest, strangest thing that Gavin Newsom likes to do is compare himself to Elon Musk.
I know. We're Doge, but better. And we've been Doge, but better for literally 6 years.
Well, he should be comparing himself to Donald Trump Jr. because they both had Kimberly Guilfoyle.
Eskimo brothers.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Well, there are two bills currently floating through the legislature that would be very bad for California motorists. One would take away your right to a trial for red light camera tickets. The other would make a 20-mile-per-hour school zone speed limit enforceable 24/7, 365, which is purely a money grab because no school is in session at 2 o'clock in the morning. The only thing I can think of, Randy, that would make that workable or reasonable is if you had adult education going on at night. And I know that because I used to teach it when I was in graduate school. And those people spend a lot of time hanging out outside the school because they need a smoke break every 4.5 minutes.
What was it? The Success Program?
Oh, yes. Well, that was a separate class. Adult ed was for people who couldn't pass the GED.
Oh, my.
Oh, yes. Many of them also rode their bikes to class, which is what you're forced to do after your third DUI. But anyway, I would imagine that if you're driving by a school, there's adult ed going on at night, you want to keep an eye out. But do we really need to enforce that speed limit? Can we not expect people to just drive at a reasonable speed if you're going by a school at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night when you know the kids aren't there? Makes no sense. Joining us to talk about this is Jay Beeber, who is with the National Motorists Association. Jay, welcome.
A pleasure to be with you.
So both of these bills appear to be completely awful to me. What say you?
Well, you got it right. Look, both of these bills are actually being pushed by the same group, the same people that push the HLA thing in LA. There are these anti-car groups. They hate anybody that gets in a car and goes anywhere, and they're just using these vehicles in order to make driving as difficult and as miserable and as horrible as possible. So you don't get in your car and go anywhere. You ride a bicycle, or you take train, or you just don't go anywhere, have no impact on the planet. This is the group we're dealing with.
It's wild to me that these people have any constituency at all, given how the state of California is built. You have some cities like Manhattan, for example, Boston, Philadelphia, whatever. They're big vertically built cities where you can take things like public transportation. You can walk to work if you live in the same neighborhood as your office, whatever the case may be. But in California and in the rest of the West, really, we're built horizontally. We don't have big vertically built cities. You might live in Claremont and work in Huntington Beach. You might live in Danville and work in San Francisco. Different people live in different places, and their patterns are completely different, particularly now with the advancement of technology. And you don't have a lot of men in gray flannel suits working a 9 to 5 anymore. So people are dependent on their cars to get to where they need to go. And a public transportation grid just doesn't make sense for a majority of people.
Right. This is true. And just with regards to public transit and the way, let's say, LA is built or any of the other major parts of California, you can't build out enough transit over 20, 30 years. You'd have to bankrupt the entire area and spend nothing on transit in order to rival the amount of access you would have with a personal automobile. It's impossible to give the same amount with transit. It's just not possible. You can do it on Manhattan. I grew up in New Jersey. I'm familiar with Manhattan pretty well. You know, folks are familiar with parts of San Francisco. You could possibly do something there. But understand, these people want to make the entire country into Manhattan. So this is what it is. And let me tell you, these people are backed by some big money folks like Bloomberg and a guy by the name of Aaron Sosnick, who was a big developer. And so the more that they push these things, the more to get you out of your car, then they can say, oh, well, people don't need cars. We're going to build up and densify, and, everybody should live in a 15-minute city in which, you never go anywhere and you never do anything and have no impact on anything or anybody. And you just kind of stay there and waste away. So that's what these things are about. But these particular bills are just incredibly onerous. And, the first one that you mentioned, SB 720, which was taking away your right to a ticket, a right to a trial. If you get a red light camera ticket, it makes the owner of the vehicle responsible for the ticket, not the driver. Makes the ticket itself what they call prima facie evidence, which means that you have to go to one of these kangaroo court type hearings, and that the hearing officer has to assume that the ticket is correct when you walk in the door. So now you have to prove your innocence. Turns everything on its head, makes it impossible for you to fight one of these tickets. The other one, again, you did a really great job explaining the school zone bill. It's ridiculous, and the only reason is that they want to do this is because there's this thing called 20 is plenty, which is this idea that in urban areas, people should not drive any faster than 20 miles an hour. And so for that reason, they're trying to use this as a backdoor to get this policy, which nobody in their right mind would ever vote for. But when you talk about kids and saving school kids and saving lives of kids, all of the elected officials, they fall in line, even though we have engineers who have written letters about these bills to say this is a terrible idea, don't do this, and they're all voting for this thing.
It seems like the state is now copying the worst impulses of the worst HOA imaginable.
That's exactly right. That's so funny. So I fled LA not that long ago during the pandemic, and we were looking for a new place to live. And one of the things we absolutely made sure that we were not going to buy somewhere with an HOA, because I don't need a bunch of my idiot neighbors telling me how to live my life. And unfortunately, that's what local government or even state government is. It's a bunch of your neighbors who were successful in getting elected, and now they want to tell everybody how to live their lives.
Oh, I have a friend who lives in one of these big HOAs, and you do things like normal people do. You order Uber Eats, you order flowers to be delivered, whatever, Amazon. If someone is delivering something to your house, let's say it's an Uber Eats driver, and you ordered your Chinese food for dinner, and the delivery driver has to go to the gate, talk to the security guard, they give them the little slip, they have permission to be there, and they start driving to your house. They have these cameras all through the HOA, and if you exceed the posted speed limit of the HOA, the camera takes a picture, and it mails a ticket not to the driver of the car, because an HOA can't levy a fine on someone who doesn't live there, doesn't vote there, those sorts of things. They send a fine to the homeowner that gave the delivery driver permission to be on the HOA property, and you have to pay it. And if you don't pay it, then you're on the wrong side of the HOA, and they can punish you in all kinds of ways.
This is a perfect analogy of SB 720 with the red light camera tickets, which is you're responsible because it's your car. You allowed somebody to drive your car. Therefore, everything they do in that car is you're responsible for. And this is not going to stop with red light camera tickets. They've already passed this pilot program for speed cameras, and that's exactly what it's going to be. LA is going to have them. San Francisco is going to have them. A number of other cities are going to have them. And the owner of the vehicle is going to be responsible for those tickets regardless of who is driving. And again, the ticket's going to be prima facie evidence, and you're not going to be able to challenge it. And so this is the way this is going, because it's too burdensome for the government to prove that you did something wrong or to prove that you were the person who did something wrong. It's just, hey, we got a picture of a license plate. We'll go after that person. And as long as we can get their money, that's really all they care about, which is what this is about.
And it gets even creepier, because in San Francisco, with some of these camera fines or citations or whatever it is that you want to call them, they want to make the fine different based on whether or not you're a member of a certain protected class.
Yes, they're basing it, quote unquote, on income, but of course, this is code for, there are certain people in society that we can't hold responsible for anything. So therefore, we'll let them off the hook. But, the other people, the regular folk, we're not, we have to ping them. And again, that's what this is about. And again, with SB 720, in terms of the money, understand the bill is written that in such a way that 100% of the money the city gets to keep, but that money has to be spent on the pet projects of the sponsors of the bill, which is the people that were pushing, these road diets and pushing these complete streets things and this Vision Zero nonsense and all this, that nobody should ever die in a traffic accident ever again and all of this kind of stuff. And just think about how much control you have to have over people's lives that, no one will ever make a mistake and no one will ever die in a traffic accident. Of course, in their minds, the drivers are always 100% responsible, even if, the bicyclist ran a stop sign or the pedestrian, ran out into the street and got hit by the car.
Okay, to my eye, based on what you just described, this is a money laundering scheme.
To some extent. I mean, that's a perfect way to describe it. I hadn't thought about that, but that's exactly right. This bill is specifically written for revenue. It's written for revenue for the red light camera companies, because by taking away the burden of having to identify the driver, there's a lot less work for them to do. So it's cheaper for them to run these programs and get paid for them. They're not going to give a discount. They're just basically going to pocket the difference. The cities get to keep all the money, and then this group gets to have that money go to their pet projects. So that is 100% what this bill is about, because if you think about it, there's no reason to run this bill. We already have red light cameras in the state of California. Thankfully, we were very successful in getting rid of them in LA and in a lot of other places, because A, they don't work, and B, they're ridiculously regressive way to take money from the public. But the fact of the matter is, they're not happy that not enough people are getting these tickets. They want this to flourish everywhere, and by getting the cities to profit from them and from the red light camera companies to make even more money on them, they'll proliferate even more. And that's, again, what they want. That's the goal here.
We're speaking with Jay Beeber of the National Motorists Association. Jay, one of the ways that groups kill bad legislation is to mobilize their membership. We know certain groups are very good at that. The National Rifle Association, for example, is extremely good at it. You hear the critics of the NRA, and they seem to think that the NRA's silver bullet is that they have a ton of money to throw around, when in fact the opposite is true. They really don't have a ton of money to throw around. What they have is a membership that's engaged, and they can get them writing letters, they can get them calling congressmen, they can get them active in fighting legislation that group opposes anytime they need to. Labor unions are very effective at that. If they want a contract, they know how to put pressure on school boards or city councils so they can get what they want. Where it's not effective is when you have groups that are large and diverse, and it's not quite as easy to say, okay, we're all on the same page. You never see, for example, college graduates mobilize, because you have very conservative college graduates, you have very liberal college graduates, you have people who went to private schools, public schools, whatever. You're never going to be able to mobilize that population of people. In California, almost everyone over the age of 16 is a motorist. That's a huge population, and I would imagine it's very difficult to mobilize them to try to kill something off like this. Is that true?
You're 100% on the money. I mean, we do have some tools on our website, which is at motorist.org. It's motorist is plural, .org, to fight these two bills, where people can make phone calls and they can send in some emails and do those sorts of things. But you are 100% right. This is the challenge that we have, which is everybody who is listening to this right now is probably a motorist, and probably the vast majority, I would say probably 99% of people listening to this would say, these are terrible bills, this is a terrible idea, and maybe 20 people at the most will then get online, go to motorist.org, and actually take action, make the phone call, which takes 2 seconds, put their information in, send the email, again, another 20 seconds, and you could stop these bills if you did this. But the vast majority of people listening to this never will, because here's the thing. They don't identify as a driver. Bicyclists, these people identify as bicyclists. They identify as this protected group, this victim group that everybody's out there killing them on bicycles. So this is all part of identity politics as well, which is these groups identify as that group. Gun owners identify as a gun owner or as a Second Amendment rights person. Same thing with the unions. They identify as a union member. Most people don't identify as a motorist or as a driver, even though it is the most important thing that we do, because you can't exercise almost any of your other rights or mostly anything else you want to do in your life unless you can get in your car and go somewhere.
It's so crazy to me that a tiny population of people who advocate for road diets, people who want people out of cars, the bicyclists, are going to be able to win this because that group is easy to mobilize. And the other group, the majority, the vast majority, you're talking about 90-something% to just a few percentage points, that group is not mobilized, so they're going to get walked all over.
That's true. And that's why, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat about this and get this to a larger audience, because, we can only do so much. We can put up the tools. We can try to notify people. We can let folks know. And that's why we exist. And what we really need is for people, the next thing is for people to actually take the action. If people will take the action, they can kill these bills. I mean, and here's the thing. It doesn't take that much. If 100 people, if 200 people called, I mean, how many thousands of people are listening to this right now? If every one of those people just went to our website, motorist.org, just follow the links there, and there's an action tab, and there's also a pop-up when you first get to the page. If people did that, this would be over in 20 seconds. We actually did this against a similar bill to 720 back in 2013. I was on the radio, and we got so many calls to the office of the person that was running that bill that they called me begging me to make it stop. So it's possible to do this, but people are apathetic and they think, somebody else is going to do it. Well, you know what? If you think somebody else is going to do it, it's going to get done to you.
The website is motorists.org. Jay Beeber is the executive director of the National Motorists Association. Jay, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me on. Always a pleasure.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, we've now hit the halfway point of today's show. If you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. It could be the Apple Podcast app. It could be iHeart. It could be Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You could download all the episodes. You could download episodes with callers from Los Angeles, episodes with callers from San Francisco, and, of course, episodes with callers from Oakland.
It's Oakland, man. It's Oakland, hey.
I love that guy.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
790 KABC welcomes Brian Adams with special guests Pat Benatar and Neil Girardo. It's all happening at the Kia Forum on November 18th. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
Well, we know that right now in the state of California, there's one set of rules for the taxpayers, the people who follow the rules, and there's another set of rules for everyone else. One issue that puts the spotlight on that dichotomy is the issue of parking, where if you're homeless and you have a non-operational RV where you dump raw sewage into the street on a regular basis, and you have people over to do some drugs, and you steal things, and you keep those things in your RV, and you start fires and everything else that we know goes on, the city can't do anything about it because you're homeless and you are committing crimes associated with poverty. But if you're a taxpayer and you want to go out for a night on the town, you want to go out and have a nice meal or go to a basketball game or a comedy club or whatever the case may be, in any sort of population center, parking is a nightmare. And that's not just something that we think about and it's not proven. Randy, a grand jury came out and said that is in fact 100% true.
That's what's going on in San Diego right now, a city that's facing a massive budget deficit to the tune of $250 million. And one of the ways they want to solve that budget deficit is by doubling parking fees, which, by the way, isn't legal because parking fees can only be used on road repairs. But you know how this works. They'll bankrupt all that money to spend on other things and then use that to backfill. This is how they work all the time. Let's find out what's going on with this in San Diego. Here is CBS 8.
Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Marcella Lee.
I'm Carla Chiquetto. Now to our other top story tonight. A new grand jury report is taking the city of San Diego's public parking system to task and calling for major changes.
This report, entitled Parking Roulette in the City of San Diego, shines a spotlight on the frustrations of finding and paying for parking. CBS 8's Richard Allen is here with more on what this report is recommending and how the mayor is responding. Richard?
You know, you just have one or two experiences where you're driving around for an hour trying to find a parking space, and that's a neighborhood you might never go back to.
Oh, if I know parking is going to be a problem, I avoid it. There were certain shopping centers in my neighborhood in Los Angeles where I knew I would have to fight for parking to pick up my dry cleaning. And at a certain point, you say to yourself, dry cleaning is not worth fighting over parking. So you just pick a different dry cleaner.
I quit a Pilates class because I could not find any parking in Encino. I said, screw this. And I went to McDonald's.
And Carlo and Marcella, this grand jury report is coming out just as the city of San Diego is making sweeping changes to its parking policy, including already doubling meter rates, as well as proposals for more meters, dynamic pricing, and extending enforcement hours.
We're going to have surge pricing on parking?
In a one-party city, in a one-party state, you can get away with this if you want it.
It's so real. It's such a nightmare trying to find parking in so many parts of San Diego.
When it comes to finding and paying for parking in San Diego, San Diegans have some passionate opinions.
Something absolutely 100% needs to be done. It's one of the reasons why I want to leave San Diego.
Honestly,
If there's someone that wants to leave San Diego, that's San Diego doing something wrong. That's one of the most beautiful places in the entire state.
You cannot find a city in these United States with better weather than San Diego. And if she's willing to leave San Diego for the deserts of Nevada, what does that tell you about the government in San Diego?
honestly, I find myself often Ubering, even if I have a car, just because I don't want to deal with finding parking.
Wait, what? If I have a car?
Yeah, what's that about? Is he stealing the Kias too?
Honestly, I find myself often Ubering, even if I have a car, just because I don't want to deal with.
Even if I have a car. So he hypothetically has a car?
Or maybe he shares it with his spouse. I don't know.
He gets it on Mondays and Wednesdays?
Honestly, I find myself often Ubering, even if I have a car, just because I don't want to deal with finding parking and paying for it.
Now, that being said, about the hypothetical car guy, I do that all the time. Even when I'm not planning to imbibe a bunch of alcohol, sometimes if I'm going to an event, I will Uber just because I don't want to deal with parking.
Maybe he's part of a throuple and he only gets the car one day a week.
A new county grand jury report criticizes the city's approach to public parking management, pointing to a confusing array of rules, meters, apps, and signage, calling it a scavenger hunt for affordable parking, while also alleging a lack of transparency in how parking meter revenues are handled.
I think that the parking in the city of San Diego is unfair. I think there's something that needs to get done about it, and something needs to get done soon.
The report recommends the city improve its...
We don't need the sound effects of the coins going into the meter because most meters don't accept coins anymore, kids.
By the way, the cities are in competition with the suburbs for restaurants. If you don't have to fight for parking in one of the suburbs, but you do in the city, at a certain point, you stop dining in the city and you just get real comfortable dining in the suburbs.
The report recommends the city improve its signage when it comes to...
Guys, seriously, we don't need the coins.
What are we at, an arcade?
Improve its signage when it comes to metered public parking, and also calls on the city to require privately owned commercial parking lots to clearly display their parking fees.
Because sometimes they don't even have the parking price posted unless you're already there and scanning it, and then you have to embarrassingly drive away.
And then you realize it says maximum day rate, $30.
What they charge for parking is a crime.
Look what they're doing at the theme parks. It's like $35 to park at Universal Studios now.
Well, how about for some of the football games? If you go to a USC football game down at the Coliseum, it's an arm and a leg.
It's $100 to park.
I don't know, begin the hunt anew.
The grand jury also wants the city to disband its community parking districts, which were originally created to advise on parking and transportation issues and allocate meter revenues, but have come under fire for poor transparency. Speaking earlier today with CBS 8.
Is this another slush fund?
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Speaking earlier today with CBS 8, Mayor Todd Gloria defended the recent move to raise meter rates while acknowledging those funds must go toward transportation-related needs.
You know, this is such a fascinating city because the city has bent over backwards to allow all these exemptions for developers to build ADUs with no parking, which has pushed a lot of people onto street parking, and now we want to jack up parking meters.
Well, and that was a city that was very well run for a very long time. And then they elected this clueless joker, and everything went to hell almost immediately.
Where we have parking meters, we have a lot of potholes, we have a lot of busted streetlights, we have a lot of things that new additional revenue can go to fix.
So you can't fix it with the exorbitant parking rates that are happening right now?
Oh, no, he needs more.
Absent the additional revenue, we may not be able to fix those.
In a statement, the city also made clear
this is a guy, by the way, who posts music videos where he and his staff copy Beyonce or whoever it is that has the hot music video out at the time, where they change the lyrics to weigh in on some public policy issue, and that's what they put out as their statement.
Yikes.
In a statement, the city also made clear that a number of the recommendations will be addressed in the comprehensive package of parking reforms that has already been proposed by the city and will be brought forward for city council approval in the next few months. Among those reforms, ensuring transparent reporting of parking meter revenues and recommended improvements to the...
Why is it so hard to get local government to tell us where the money's going?
Because the money essentially is being laundered frequently. Look at this conversation that we just had with Jay Beeber. The money that's going to be generated from all of these tickets for red light camera infractions and school district violations or school zone violations, it's going to go to the preferred organizations of the people who sponsored the legislation, which means the money's coming back to them.
To the Community Parking District program.
So we are well aware of these shortcomings. We're taking aggressive action to fix them.
No, you're not.
And to take a look at this grand jury report for yourself, just go to CBS8.com, click on the online.
There you go. The parking in San Diego is insane, and it's about to get a hell of a lot more expensive.
But they need to do it out of equity. We told you that L.A. Mayor Karen Bass is using fuzzy math to get around defunding the police. She says she does not support defunding the police, and the LAPPL, the union representing the LA police officers, backs her up on that claim. She's making that claim because she's not cutting any sworn officers who are members of the department. And the union is very happy about that. What she's not telling you is that she is cutting civilian employees who work for the police department, whose work is essential to ensure public safety. Those are the people that she's cutting because they don't have a union as powerful as the LAPPL, and there's no one to fight for them the way that the LAPPL would fight for sworn officers. Now, I'm not advocating that the sworn officers should be cut. They shouldn't be cut. We need more police officers in LA. We're an under-policed city. But the civilian employees at the department should not be cut either, particularly when she's not cutting her worthless social programs,
including the billion-dollar homeless budget that has had little to no effect on the homeless.
And finally, a member of the LA City Council is speaking out.
Let's hear NBC4 as Tracy Park takes on this insane cut to the police budget.
Now, with the city of Los Angeles facing a nearly $1 billion budget shortfall, Mayor Bass is proposing laying off 1,600 employees. And we know that a quarter of them work for the Los Angeles Police Department. And
the cuts that Karen Bass has made in her proposed budget are so insane when you think of a $12 billion budget for the city, all the things that we waste money on. They want to cut a whole bunch of civilian police officers. They want to close animal shelters. They want to close domestic violence shelters. And they want to cut a whole bunch of police staff.
No, well, she's a woman who has a twinkle in her eye for Fidel Castro, and based on her budget, you can understand why.
And we know that a quarter of them work for the Los Angeles Police Department. And now some members of the LA City Council say these cuts would be devastating to public safety. NBC4's Robert Kovacic just spoke with one of those council members hours before they make their case to the public. Robert.
Okay, Carolyn, let's break this down for you. We are talking about 403 positions within the LAPD, and these are civilian positions. In other words, those who would lose their jobs are not police officers. However, LA City Council member Tracy Park says, don't be fooled here. This is the impact it would have on those who are sworn to serve and protect.
The hard reality here is in Los Angeles, we are already in the middle of a public safety crisis. If we lose these civilian positions, what that means is police officers are going to be pulled off the streets.
What would it be like if we didn't have Tracy Park on that LA City Council?
She's like the blonde girl on the Munsters.
To cover work that should be done by civilians, cases will go unsolved and criminals will remain free.
Oh, I just heard, because I'm listening right now live to the budget hearings that are going on with the city council, we may have to close 2 city jails to deal with that budget cut.
Oh, great. That's exactly what we need. More criminals on the streets.
Some of those civilian positions include forensic scientists, ballistic.
That's like Dexter. We don't want to get rid of Dexter.
No, you don't.
Someone's got to analyze the blood.
Some of those civilian positions include forensic scientists, ballistic experts, crime scene photographers, those who deal with cybersecurity, and those who...
We're going to get rid of the guy that uses the chalk, John.
Oh, yeah. I think we're getting rid of everyone who showed up at the crime scene outside of Nicole Simpson's house.
Those who deal with cybersecurity, and those who recruit new police officers. And Park said...
Wait a second. Aren't we trying to recruit police officers, so we're going to fire the recruiters?
Yeah. Who's going to sit at the card table when the criminal justice class graduates?
Who recruit new police officers. And Park says this already depleted LAPD is not what the city needs coming into a critical period.
We can't continue to prepare for major world events like the World Cup next year, the Super Bowl after that, and then the Olympics in 2028.
Fun fact, when Eric Garcetti sold the International Olympic Committee on, hey, have your Olympics in Los Angeles, he promised them by 2024, this is before they moved it to 2028, 2024, which is a year ago, LAPD would be up to 12,000 officers.
Oh, yeah. Well, they also promised us that the bullet train would have been done many years ago.
Just be smart and stay apart.
You know, someday we're going to take an hour of calls. Who's worse, Garcetti or Karen Bass?
We'd have some fights.
Without the staff that we need to get ready to do that, we need police officers on patrol in our communities. We need them responding to 911 calls. And our response times already are incredibly impacted.
Tracy Park will be joined tomorrow by council members John Lee and council members Tim McCosker and unions, including the Police Protective League. And also tomorrow, expect to hear the case that the LAPD had 10,000 police officers 5 years ago. But Park says budget estimates will put the number of LAPD officers at just over 8,600 by 2026.
For a city of 4 million people.
That is geographically diverse. The city limits for LA go all the way from San Pedro out to Granada Hills in the valley. It's huge.
That is the fewest number of police officers since 1995. Carolyn will have more tomorrow on NBC4 Newscast.
There you go. Tracy Park, with a few other members of the council trying to defend these cuts, trying to stop these cuts from happening. But you know who else has a seat at that table? Ulysses. And we know what she's into, don't we?
Because we are the defund the police people, right?